Hello, everyone. Skeptoidius, welcome to the side chat. Yeah, probably haven't watched one of these in a while because I newly came back from a little hiatus for mental health reasons. But we are here, and yes, we are covering the carnivore diet again because this just keeps ongoing. And I mean, the big reason why it keeps ongoing is because of Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, the two people that are really pushing this thing forward. Um, and we'll get into some different information than we covered the last time we went over this. And again, this time, as with every time, we have our well, I only have one flavor this time. I only have the immunity ginger cayenne wellness shots. So super chats of $3 or more will get me to consume these. I only have 3 today, so kind of limits the amount I can do, but I will be getting more eventually. Miranda, welcome. Kelly, welcome to this place. So I want to give, hey Casey, so I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer before kind of getting into everything. So the original intent of this episode was that I would be undergoing the carnivore diet for the past week and then talking about it here. And I went forward with that plan. However, the day that I started it, which was this past Sunday, I felt so sick even into the first day of it. And I had to pull the plug on it and make that decision for my own health. And I stopped it. I did not I did not go further with any other days. Um, and I get that there's going to be people out there that say, well, of course you're not going to feel good on one day of this. And yeah, with a lot of diets, you're not going to feel great on the first day, but keep in mind, like as we get into this, this is more extreme than keto. This is more extreme than most diets out there. And we'll get into specifically what nutrients you're lacking and what things you're really increasing. What kind of sick? Like I number one had super low energy and also like was feeling nauseous and dizzy like near the end of the day. I think this like the salt content is incredibly high. And it was a decision I had to make as well because I was on the Atheist Experience on Sunday and through like doing shows throughout the week, I decided, you know, is doing the carnivore diet for the week worth sacrificing my performance on the rest of the shows? And I decided that it was not worth it. And it was also not worth it to feel that miserable the whole week. So that was a calculated decision that I had to make. And I took precautions that people would have said something about the fact that like I was cooking things in beef tallow and not butter. I did use dairy products because like you're missing a lot of nutrients with just meat. But we'll get into certain people's things. But I did want to give that disclaimer. I honestly I wanted to go through with it, but I had to make that my own decision. Um so today we're gonna dive into an article from a dietitian talking about their concerns with the carnivore diet. We're going to look at Jordan Peterson's specific diet and what he did and continues to do. We're going to look at some very extreme claims from a few people who are proponents of the carnivore diet, and we are also going to look at a case report that came out recently, and kind of my thoughts on that. So a few things to cover today. And then after this, we'll send you all over to Holy Spirits. And I hope you all stick around for that because that will be a great time. But here we have this website so it's called Yates Nutrition. And this is just the page for a dietitian. It seems like they do a lot of anti-pseudoscience content. I looked at the article about our chiropractors a scam, and I do want to include their information on that as well, because I think this person is very well spoken, and has some very credible, obviously like a credible degree and some very reasonable thoughts. And since I am not I'm not a dietitian, I have some thoughts about nutrition and kind of recommendations, but I do want to defer to experts who are experts in nutrition. So I'm going to let this person kind of take it away, and I'm going to kind of add in my own thoughts as we go. And welcome into everybody who is just now joining us. Meat. Yes, we're talking about meat today. As I'm drinking a Pepsi, which is not at all meat. So here we go. So this person, I don't know the gender of this person. I could see it doesn't say specifically who the author is. I'm guessing it's the person with the last name Yates, but I don't want to make any assumptions about who this person is who wrote this. But it says, have you heard of the carnivore diet and wondered if it's safe? Read this carnivore diet dietitian review to learn more about this diet trend and see the carnivore diet debunked once and for all. In the wake of the keto craze, now we have carnivore cults emerging. I put off addressing this diet trend for a while because it's so preposterous that it seemed unnecessary to even discuss. However, it continues to bleed into my social media feed, and the zealous advocates spread more misinformation. I'm giving this conversation the green light. And they do mention keto at the beginning, and keto is different than this. And we'll get into specifically why. But and I will do a full episode on keto. I fully plan on trying keto once I'm in a state where I can handle going a week not feeling as well. But keto does have some validity, especially for people with insulin resistance or people with seizures, namely because if you're not relying on glycogen for energy sources, you are less at risk to, like, your muscles aren't going to be able to contract as easily. So if you have a seizure, it's proposed that keto could help people with seizure disorders. But this is more extreme. Yeah, HR, I definitely would not recommend carnivore for people with thyroid issues, for sure. But this diet is so extreme. So it's literally just it is a meat only diet. And there's some flexibility that some people take on this. That's why doctors have little credibility. I'm a DO, but again, I am deferring here to dietitians, and I defer to people who are experts, and I have sources for people who are experts. So I'm not claiming to be an expert in nutrition. There are some examples of overlap, though, where we do have similar training and we do agree on a lot of things. So the big thing here is that this is an animal only diet, and some people will make exceptions and allow, higher amounts of dairy. Some people will even allow for like black coffee. And it's just kind of like the big reason I think people allow for all these exceptions is because, like, it's so unsustainable, for one. Taking especially an average everyday person who needs some variety in their diet, they can't just eat meat all the time. That is going to lead to like nutritional deficiencies, but also it's going to lead to like eating disorders, and that is kind of one of my biggest problems with fad diets in general is the uh risk of developing unhealthy relationships with food in doing this. I'm definitely in favor of more balanced diets, but this one is particularly extreme. DOs and MDs are pretty much equivalent in this country. In other countries, they're not, but in the US, they're pretty much the same. And via Michelle Yates uses she her. All right, thank you. I will use she her for this person then. But the traditional carnivore diet is really just meat, eggs, seafood, some dairy, very low in lactose, such as butter, lard, hard cheeses, and maybe cream or heavy cream, water, and bone broth. The no goes for the carnivore diet are processed foods, which anything anything that has human handling or machine handling before it gets to your table is processed. So, this idea that just because something is processed means that it's bad for you is not true. There are, of course, degrees to how much something is processed, how much is added into something, and that is something to be considered. But would like a bagged salad at the grocery store, even there's some that don't even have extra dressing or if you literally just get a bag of lettuce that has been cut uh, and put in the bag, that is processed. Even if nothing else was added, that is still processed. If you have uh, like vegetables that are pre-sliced and put in a container, that is still processing. So I just want everyone to detach a little bit from processed being bad. Also, there are types of food additives that are beneficial. And we see this especially with vitamin fortification in cereals, in milk, in like breads and other products, especially those going to food deserts or places where healthier eating is very, very expensive. It's important to add those fortifications so that those communities can obtain all of the nutrients that they need. And especially if you're thinking about children in those populations, they need certain nutrients to be able to develop appropriately. And so fortification in that processing of the food is actually very, very beneficial. So it's important if you're going to have this idea of like, if you're wondering if something's processed or not, maybe ask a different question. Like, what specific processing are we talking about? Is there added sugar? Is there added fat? Like, what things were added? What things were taken away? And be skeptical about this particular definition. So the carnivore diet versus the keto diet. So both of these diets involve ketosis, which can be, doable for a lot of people, especially again, people with insulin resistance or people with seizures, also people who are athletes who do primarily aerobic type of exercise. So, like long distance running, long distance biking, those kinds of things that rely on fat metabolism as opposed to glucose metabolism. I remember being very involved in jujitsu, which is primarily an anaerobic sport and relies on glucose and glycogen metabolism, like those short-term bursts of high intensity exercise, including like weightlifting is often anaerobic. Those types of athletes probably wouldn't benefit from keto, and it might be more dangerous for them as opposed to something that's higher in carb or something that's more balanced, because you need that glucose. And the thing too is, like, especially in the short term, your body, when you don't have those carbohydrates and you run out of glycogen, your body's going to produce ketones, of course, but your body's also going to respond by producing more glucose, like uh because ketosis is a state of starvation. And depending on how you do it, can be problematic for brain health, can be problematic for your body health in general. So you have to be very, very careful and responsible with how you do ketosis. But the first reaction that your body wants to do is to make more glucose. So if especially carnivore people are relying on a lot of rhetoric that is primal, ancestral, like this is what our bodies were meant to be. Ketosis is starvation. It is effectively because yeah, Don, what if you can tell me what fuel are you generating from burning fat. It's in the name. It's in the name. You're generating ketone bodies, which let's go over something real quick. So I'm trying to pull up a diagram of ketogenesis because this is important to understand. Ketone body synthesis. Because not all of the ketone bodies that you generate are useful. Yeah, done. So there are multiple types of ketones that are generated. Not all of them can be utilized as fuel. And the ones that are not utilized as fuel build up in the body and can be incredibly toxic, one of these being acetone. So here's a good little diagram. Oh, this is part of a video. I don't necessarily want that. Can I just get the picture? I think I can. I am just going to get the picture. Downloads. Oh, no, that's okay. I might have trouble finding the exact picture, but when you're making ketone bodies, you're generating primarily acetoacetate and 3-hydroxybutyrate, which can be utilized to fuel the body in cases of emergency. Is kind of what it's meant for. But you get a high buildup of acetone, which is toxic in high doses. If you overload the system and you get that buildup, you are risking things like coma and death. So I'm not saying that all ketosis is bad. But what I am saying is that it is very important that you do this properly and that you do this under guidance of a physician and a dietitian, people who can monitor and make sure that you're not having complications related to this. Like, it is a lot more hands-on of a diet than people think. You can't just sit there and not eat carbs and then think that you're not risking other complications. So, like, keto can be used, but it needs to be used responsibly. So, but the difference here between carnivore and keto is that keto does allow for a small amount of carbohydrates. Some people's amount is going to be different, up to 20 milligrams, and some people up to 50 milligrams, depending on who you are and what your goals are. And that allows keto to be more responsible because you're not completely eliminating your carbohydrate amount. You still have a little bit to kind of rely on for, number one, for fiber intake, and two, you're not completely losing your anaerobic capabilities during that time. However, carnivore does not allow for consumption of plant matter, which is where it gets scary. It's a complete elimination diet. And it also eliminates nuts, seeds, avocados, plant fats, all of that. It's also different than the paleo diet because, again, the paleo diet allows for plant-derived foods. So this diet, as this article gets into, it came from people by the name of Paul Saladino, who is a psychiatrist and a functional medicine doctor, which if you don't remember that conversation, we did talk about functional medicine. It is pseudoscience. It is a pseudoscience field relying on the arguments of get to the root cause of disease, but not really specifying what specific root cause they're getting to, using things like the buzzwords, inflammation, all of that stuff. So it is a pseudoscientific field. And so we have some conflicts of interest here within these people, selling their own supplements, supporting an organization where I made a comment on the internet not too long ago about this idea that if you have to, like, if your argument for your own program relies on shitting on other people, like saying that the medical establishment is shit, which in a lot of ways it is, but saying that, well, doctors don't know anything, therefore my product is correct or my diet is correct, is a fallacy, right? This is not yeah, it's funny because Paul Saladino, like people are saying in the audience, he's not a true carnivore. He's not even keto. So he popularized this thing and that doesn't even do it. And I want to bet that a lot of people claiming that they do this don't actually do this 100%. But like, just because somebody else is doing something wrong does not mean that your thing is correct. You need to build up your own case for why what you're doing is effective and specifically what you're claiming about it. So functional medicine, their whole case is conventional medicine is bad, therefore do it my way. So we have some people already not very honestly skeptical about what they're talking about. And he published the Carnivore code in 2020. And then there were two other doctors that got in on this. So Anthony Chaffee and Sean Baker, who Anthony Chaffee is a neurosurgeon. So not anything related to metabolism or nutrition. I have heard of breatharians. That's something I still need to cover on this channel for sure. And Sean Baker, who's an orthopedic surgeon, who not like not saying all orthopedic surgeons are bad, because there are many like great orthopedic surgeons, but they are out of their depth talking about this kind of thing. And ortho is notoriously like one of the least academic specialties. So it's kind of funny, like if you talk to doctors and you said, "Oh, this ortho said this, is claiming this thing," it's like, I don't know if I really trust this person unless it's something related to ortho. Like, it's important that people who are experts in the field stay within their scope of practice and within their scope of expertise. And when they're not, they're deferring. Like here, I'm deferring here to a dietitian and to people who know more about this than I do. But it's funny too that a lot of grifters are surgeons, and I have my own thoughts about this because surgery, number one, is very, very toxically masculine. It's a field where people do a lot of faking it till they make it. There's a lot of abuse in that system. So the people that are attracted to being surgeons are the ones that are usually kind of prone to be abusers. They're prone to be like they have the right personality to become grifters. And the other thing is they are put through so much work in their surgical training and as surgical attendings. Like, they have minimal work-life balance. And I could imagine that you'd get tired of that. You're like, I'm making all of this money, but my life sucks. I'm working so much. What if I could make money and not work as hard? And so it makes sense why they become grifters. On the flip side, yeah, Dr. Oz, exactly. He's exactly part of this. On the flip side, you have specialties like family medicine and pediatrics that do an insane amount of work, but also make like not very much money, because the people that are attracted to pediatrics go into it for the field. They go into it with a reason to help people, a reason to take care of kids, to take care of families, and they're willing to take a pay cut and very long hours to make that goal happen. So it's possible that surgery is just prone to produce people like this. And the interesting thing here that they mentioned too is that Sean Baker had his license revoked in 2017 and then reinstated in 2019 with restrictions. These restrictions were, so he started peddling pseudoscience and then got his license reinstated with the uh, restrictions that he had to be supervised as an attending because he was grifting so much. So we already have some disciplinary issues with Sean Baker. So it's a case where maybe this isn't the physician to trust with your health, especially not without supervision. And this person, this dietitian, brings up the case that we were talking about already, that a doctor is not a specialist in nutrition. And so, yeah, don't only trust medical doctors. But this is where we rely on people as a team. Like, this is a team-based sport. We tag in dietitians all the time. I love dietitians. That's why I'm reading the opinion of a dietitian right now and not just talking out of my ass. Because we need to approach this as a team and not just assume I'm an orthopedic surgeon, I know everything. So that is definitely important. So how does the carnivore diet work? The carnivore diet aims to demonize plants and carbohydrates using scary language like oxalates found in plant-derived foods are giving you kidney stones, which the amount of oxalates you have to be consuming to get kidney stones is insane. For the most part, people getting kidney stones are going to be like hereditary things. So it's possible to influence your diet that way, or influence it with the diet, but not exclusively so. When you're claiming nutrition science is rooted in Seventh-day Adventists who are plant-based and deem meat as bad because little boys would masturbate. I don't know the validity of that, Don. I feel like you're coming in here to troll a little bit, so I'm gonna mostly ignore you. Um, if you want to bring some cases for your position other than getting mad at people who are plant-based, we can talk. But if your social media feed surfaces the content of carnivore zealots, you'll see some compelling content about how great the carnivore diet is for you. Problem is, all of these perceived benefits are from anecdotal evidence of people saying they feel better. That's the key here. A lot of it is subjective and not objective. And that is something we need to be mindful of. So the benefits that people often claim is weight loss, that they will claim that they experience weight loss on a carnivore diet, and that's probably accurate. People probably this is plant-based? No, this isn't plant-based. This channel is I'm in favor of more balanced diets. Yeah. Well, we'll show some evidence here. But I mean, welcome Don. But the goal here isn't to be a plant-based position or a carnivore-based position. This whole thing is meant to show what are the risks and benefits of doing certain things. Again, for everything, you should talk to a professional, your professional, because I don't know any of you in your particular circumstances, but this is just to provide food for thought of, maybe this is more complicated than whatever the internet is telling me. And thank you, Charlisa Smith. And yeah, but weight loss probably is happening on the carnivore diet. I'm not going to deny that. And yeah, one of the reasons being that fewer calories are being eaten overall because of high protein. And so if you're intaking high amounts of protein, you'll often be satiated sooner and then not want to eat as much. And that's something that you're going to experience on carnivore. Probably you're probably also going to experience it on keto. You're probably also going to experience it on a high protein plant-based diet. So this isn't a one size fits all thing. Like, it's important that a lot of these benefits are going to be shared across multiple diets, because these people are going to claim that the carnivore is the reason why you're doing this and not it's the high protein. And I will mention too that that carnivore, the ideal split that they want you to have for macros is not primarily high protein. It's high fat and kind of moderate protein and zero carb. So that's something to consider, that if you are eating a primarily meat, lower dairy diet, you're probably going to get full pretty quickly because you have a lot of meat protein. But if you put something like higher dairy, lower meat, you're not going to be full as much, most likely. The other thing too is water weight, like they're mentioning here, and that's something. This is something that does happen with keto as well. So something that happens in the very beginning of keto and in the very beginning of carnivore, for example, is loss of water weight secondary to loss of glycogen. So glycogen is the storage sugar that you maintain for emergency purposes. If you run out and you need some, you use some of your glycogen. So for survival reasons, the human body has developed a mechanism to put sugar in storage in the form of glycogen, which attracts a lot of water. So if you have higher glycogen storage, you probably have a lot of water weight, and that's just something that is normal. It's not bad to have water weight, and along with this, the number on the scale is not necessarily indicative of your state of health. Uh, like something that if people are looking for sustainable weight loss, like it's not going to be something that happens very quickly. It's going to be kind of over time weight loss, because just the number might go down with loss of water weight, but you might not have lost any fat mass. So it's important to think about that and not feel bad if you're not losing weight super quickly, because for most people, a healthy weight loss is going to be a lot slower and more gradual. And that's what's usually going to be sustained over time. So in something like this, as you're losing your stored glycogen, you're going to lose the water weight that is stored along with it. And so that's one of the big sources of this weight loss. And if you stop doing keto, or if you stop doing carnivore, a lot of times you're going to put that weight back on because it wasn't fat loss to begin with. So, so something too, if you're thinking about doing something that's low carb, that's something that you're probably going to need to do for a long period of time. And it's not going to be, you're not going to really see results in the short term. So you have to think about, is the loss of variety going to impact me in the future? Like, do I need, like, for your own relationship with food, do you need to have that flexibility built in where you can have a salad, where you can have, and you can have salads on keto, but on carnivore you can't. So that's something too to consider. It's important that you're doing like the best, ultimately, for whoever you are. The best diet for you is going to be one that you can sustain long term. And so for some people, that might be a plant-based diet. For some people, that might be a clean keto. For some people, that might be Mediterranean. Like, there's a whole range of things. And I would say be cautious of anyone telling you that there's one thing that's going to work better, because there's so many variables involved, and we need to be careful about, trying to sell a message and sell a narrative that something is going to be good just because Jordan Peterson says it's good, or because Joe Rogan says it's good. So yeah, so this important point here, just like I mentioned, when someone embarks on a very low carbohydrate diet and all the remaining carbohydrate stores are being used in the body, water is naturally excreted. This is why a lot of the times people report losing 5 pounds in a week in the beginning, even though 5 pounds of pure body fat in a week is nearly impossible. 5 pounds consisting of body fat and lean tissue and water and food is possible, though. So you can lose that through a combination of things. And that's the other thing too. The amount of weight loss that you're getting can come from the fact that you're not eating as much. And so that weight of the food in your body, because like food has weight, right? So not having as much of that in your body is also going to be a source of weight loss. Yeah, and just because someone loses weight doesn't mean it was healthy. That is something I definitely want to emphasize. All right, energy levels. So this kind of goes into the anecdote thing again. So carnivore eaters sometimes report improved energy levels, and this could be for a couple different reasons: a reduction of foods which someone didn't tolerate, digest well, and or ketones. Yeah, so it's a combination of things, and again, multiple variables that could be at play. That I want to preface this. Okay. So the whole idea of correlation versus causation. And I want to get that in our heads. Just because somebody felt better with something doesn't mean that the diet in particular was the thing that did that for them, or that this one part of the diet did that for them. Right. So we don't want to fall into a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy, meaning that B happened after A, therefore A caused B. That is a fallacy. That is dishonest argumentation. We cannot make that argument. There could be multiple reasons why somebody had increased energy levels on a particular diet. So one of these examples is if somebody has, like, let's say somebody has a food allergy that they didn't know that they had, and they stop eating that food after a while, that could be a reason why they feel better. And so it can be useful to do an elimination diet for some people to say what foods are causing my symptoms. Like lactose intolerance is one that technically there are objective tests that you could do to tell if somebody's lactose intolerant. You could even, like, for celiac disease, the gold standard of celiac disease is a biopsy of the small intestine. That is incredibly invasive, and for some people, they need that conclusive evidence. But for other people, if you do a trial of excluding gluten from your diet and you have subjective improvement, okay, maybe we don't need to take a part of your intestine and study it. Maybe we can just say, hey, it's okay if you don't eat gluten. Like that's something that people can try. And it may be that people going from a diet of, if they're eating Doritos all day, at like Doritos and Mountain Dew all day, and then they switch over to a carnivore diet where they're eating primarily food at home. They're not going out for fast food as much. They're more mindful of their nutrient intake. They're more mindful of their hydration. All of those things could be like the reason why they feel better could be that they just cleaned up their diet a little bit instead of that they were eating exclusively meat. Yeah, and salt content again is another thing impacting hydration status, and especially if somebody, let's say somebody has high blood pressure and they reduce their salt intake, and then they start feeling better, that could be like, lowering of their blood pressure could be part of this. So it's important to recognize, you know, it could be this thing, but it also could be something else. And instead of preaching about, I'm like, for everyone to only start eating meat, maybe you introspect a little bit and think, okay, maybe this was something that I feel better with, but maybe it's not right for everybody. And maybe the reason, maybe I could be incorrect in my reasoning for why this worked for me. Yeah, and this person mentions IBS, which is a functional illness where people have food triggers. Even there are people with food triggers uh, related to their anxiety, or their anxiety causes them to not process food well. And we do elimination diets, and we kind of it's a pain in the ass. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's not, but it's a pain to eliminate foods one by one and see what, like, or slowly reintroduce foods. But oftentimes that's what people need to say, oh yeah, no, just this type of bread wasn't doing it for me. So And they get into the ketone issue. When the body is no longer using carbohydrates as a fuel source, it will at some point resort to using ketones as a last ditch survival effort. This has, of course, been paraded as being a superior fuel source by keto advocates, but it's not necessarily the case. And something that they will talk about is what's being mentioned here: stable energy levels. And that's something that is again very subjective. And I won't get too heavily into that. Here we go. Inflammation. This is a hot button topic nowadays. So inflammation is widely misunderstood by the public, and it's something thrown out of, well, if you eat this thing, you'll have less inflammation. If you do this thing, you'll have less inflammation, without really making it clear what specifically the issue is with inflammation. And this is again where nuance comes into play. Is inflammation all good? No. Is inflammation all bad? No. Is chronic low levels of inflammation over time generally a bad thing? Yes. Especially in cases where people have autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, people with diabetes, etc. Yes, they could have chronically levels of chronic inflammation. However, your diet may or may not have something to do with it. There's some data suggesting like certain food items may or may not increase inflammation. The jury's kind of still out on that. We're kind of looking for a correlation versus causation thing. A lot of people are going to quote that sugar causes inflammation. But is it the sugar itself that's causing inflammation, or is it diabetes that's causing it, that's inflammatory? And I want to emphasize as well with this, I'm saying the word emphasize a lot. Inflammation is a natural part of your body regulatory systems. It is part of, and this is funny too. A lot of people will say that they're going to boost your immune system, but then say that you're reducing inflammation. But inflammation is part of your innate immunity. So yes, it's important that inflammation doesn't get too out of control to cause autoimmune disease, but you need some low level of inflammation to fight off infections. It's important that that mechanism gets triggered when it needs to, in order for you to stay healthy. And the argument, native atheist saying that carnivore causes zero inflammation, I'd love to see a citation on that. Don and native atheist, I know native atheist, I love having you around, but there are times when I don't know if you've done adequate study on this because that is a claim. You're making a claim that needs to be backed up by some evidence. What I'm seeing a lot within the medical community is there is not a set consensus on like what levels of inflammation are just inherently problematic, and what food sources are going to disproportionately cause that. So I would remain skeptical instead of kind of giving into that line of reasoning without evidence. So unless you want to provide me a citation, I'd be happy to read a citation if you can give it to me. Yeah, so we'll get into some of that. But for the most part, a lot of people citing like saying inflammation as a reason aren't providing sources to suggest that that it is the inflammation doing that, or that certain foods are causing the inflammation. So here's an important point. The carnivore diet is not a superior style of eating, despite what carnivore diehards are saying. Eating a diet composed of only meat, and again, this is a meat-only diet, or a meat, dairy, and egg-only diet, deprives the body of many key nutrients. And I think there's a hide chart somewhere of the specific nutrients, namely fiber is super duper important. A lot of the vitamins that, the vitamins can be a sticking point for some people with this. You can get most of the vitamins you need from meat or from plant matter. There are some concerns, say, with vegan diets, not getting B12 or not getting complete protein sources, especially if you're raw vegan. But vegans that, of course, are going to, like the ones that are okay with nutritional yeast, are able to supplement their B12. And vegans that are not raw vegans that can eat soy products are going to be able to get complete sources of protein. But kind of similarly with carnivore, if you eat organ meats, you do have a pretty good source of most of your vitamins. You also, if you eat dairy, you're gonna have some good sources of vitamins there too. Fiber is kind of the biggest thing that I worry about for people. And I have somebody that claims that you don't need fiber, and we're gonna look at their particular take on this. We're kind of already getting into this. So, here's some fun citations with in the insulin resistance issue. So a lot of people are going to claim that carnivore is helpful for people with insulin resistance. I'm going to pull up a study real quick. So this is a paper. It says a high saturated fat diet decreases insulin sensitivity without changing intra-abdominal fat in weight stable, overweight, and obese adults. So we have some data as well that high fat, high saturated fat diet, especially, may not be helpful for insulin resistance. So this particular issue, may not be all it's cracked up to be in the carnivore community. So be careful. Yeah, fiber is only necessary if you enjoy shitting. Yeah, I mean it's necessary for other reasons too, but let's get into, and I'll put the citations in the comment section below. I want to get into some of the juicy stuff here. And there is something that I will debunk as something that was like a bit clickbaity and misleading from the scientific community on this as well. So we're debunking a bit of both sides at this point, but here we go. Let's find. All right. So this is Michael Kummer. Actually, let's go to his about. I'm going to take you to his about page first. So his thing is that he's a biohacker, CrossFitter, and homesteader. So not an expert on any of these things. We can look at him a bit more. Michael Kummer is a professional sprinter, CrossFit athlete, and the founder of MK Supplements. Supplement shill. A dietary supplement brand that offers freeze-dried organ meat sourced from 100% pasture-raised cattle. He also hosts the Primal Shift podcast and popular YouTube channel with more than 96,000 subscribers. I think there's a little bit of conflict of interest here because he's making money. He's making money off of carnivore. Interesting. I love to react to grains and grit. That sounds interesting. It says that this diet is heretical. That's interesting. That'd actually be hilarious to go over that. But yeah, this guy sells organ meat supplements to people who do carnivore. So he has a reason for people to be committed to carnivore. So just keep that in mind. So his team published rigorously research articles and links to sound scientific evidence on the topics, including athletic performance, biohacking, which biohacking is a buzzword that really doesn't mean anything. Breathing techniques, diet, fitness, nutrition, longevity, light therapy, intentional heat and cold exposure, sleep, stress management, and supplements. So we have somebody who's not an expert at all trying to tell people how to use their supplements, which is super scammy. Giving biohacking advice, diet advice, light therapy advice, which light therapy is not evidence based. So we have a few different not evidence based ideas that he's perpetuating. And the staff, we have some contributing writers who are PhDs and dietitians, but for the most part, these are podcasters and CrossFitters selling supplements. But what does he say? He says that you don't need fiber. Let's get into it. Many people who want to follow an animal-based diet wonder how to consume enough fiber, which is supposed to be an essential factor for maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, supporting regular bowel movements, and avoiding constipation, among other alleged health benefits. So his key takeaways: that humans don't need fiber to maintain optimal gut health. While that might sound shocking, there's no credible scientific evidence that's to suggest that consuming fiber offers any meaningful health benefits. Additionally, you don't need to consume fiber to have regular bowel movements. I'm going to say, yeah, you don't necessarily need to, but most people should. And I will say that there are people with diverticulosis and who are predisposed to getting diverticulitis, which is infections of the diverticuli, little outpouchings of the large intestine, that they need fiber to help prevent stool from getting stuck in those pouches. Because if you get stool stuck in those pouches, you're at higher risk for bowel infections that can cause sepsis and death. And that's mostly common in older people. So granted, these people are mostly marketing to young, active people. And as we know from other shows that we've done, just because you're young and healthy now does not mean that you always will be. And it's important to keep that in mind. And not everybody reading your articles are young and healthy. So some people who need to listen to medical science and listen to their doctor about increasing their fiber intake might be listening to this and say, well, this guy, this biohacker guy told me not to. And then they could be predisposed to an earlier death because they felt this was beneficial. Yeah, we got some anecdotes from the audience about that particular issue. But I'm going to pull up this article that they cited. So let's play a game. Let's play a game of, does the article they cite actually say what they think it does? So we're going to go through all of them. So here is the first one. All right, low fat dietary pattern intervention and health related quality of life trial. Okay, so something that is important is, so this article is cited in multiple places in the article I was just reading. This study is not primarily about fiber. Okay, so when you are publishing a study and when you're citing a study, it's important that the study you are citing actually says what you're claiming and that it's one of the treatment variables. Like, it's one of the variables that's actually being studied and not just something that they mention as a side comment, because there are inherently going to be limitations with certain studies, with any study. There's going to be inherent limitations. And oftentimes they will throw a comment in there and say, hey, we noticed among our study population that XYZ seem to be an issue or seem to not be an issue. That does not mean that the study is claiming that fiber had anything to do with this. It's saying we need more information. This is something that could be studied, or maybe this is something contributory to another study that's out there. But this study is not about fiber, and we're going to get into this in more detail. So this is specifically about health-related quality of life as the outcome that they're looking at with regard to a low-fat dietary pattern. So they're studying low-fat diets, and wait for it, this study was only about postmenopausal women. So even with the rest of the context of this, you cannot extrapolate this study and apply it to other populations of people. This is not about young athletes. This is not about people in their 20s and 30s. This is not about their fiber intake necessarily. This is about low-fat diets in postmenopausal women. So if you are not talking to postmenopausal women about low-fat diets, this study is not going to be useful for you to cite. So what happened here is this person running the supplement website is cherry picking a study that said something that he agrees with, and probably isn't well educated in how to read studies. So like that's important here. A lot of schools don't teach like these particular nuances of a study. Like, what is the relationship between the independent and dependent variables? What exactly are we looking for? What is the sample population? What is a sufficient sample population to be useful? Is this randomized a clinical trial? Is this like, what does all of this mean? And so just slapping on a citation is probably going to convince some people that don't know how to read this. But that's why we're breaking this down right now. So intensive dietary intervention programs may lead to benefits in vitality and other components of health quality. So this is mostly subjective, but also with prevalence of diseases that could impact your quality of life. And there's a very specific diet protocol that was done for this. So the participants that they had for this, so this is between 1993 and 1998. There's population was around 50,000 women aged 50 to 79 years. And they were recruited by 40 clinical centers across the United States. So their eligibility, so they included people who had a fat intake at baseline of greater than 32% of their total calories. They excluded women with any prior colorectal or breast cancer, any other recent cancers, any type 1 diabetes, and any other medical conditions with predicted survival less than 3 years. So they took a set population. They couldn't have any history of cancer. They couldn't have any history of colorectal or breast cancer, specifically could not have type 1 diabetes, and could not have any terminal conditions with a lifespan expected lifespan less than 3 years. So that's who we have. The intervention. So we have those people. Now we're going to apply this intervention, and then we're going to measure it, statistically calculate, and then see what the results are. What can we even determine from that? So the goals, what they did in this intervention, were reduce the calories from fat to 20%, increase vegetables and fruit to 5+ servings, and increase grain servings to 6+ servings per day. Does any of this mention fiber? There is no standardized amount of fiber in this. So even if they mention like what amount of fiber people had, that is not part of the intervention that they are giving. That is not something that they are standardizing among all of the participants. So any statement about that is just something else that they noticed. And at that point, you need to say, is this a correlation or is this causation? And more than likely, this is a correlation that they noticed. So they used a survey, the RAND 36 item health survey, used to assess the quality of life at baseline, at year 1, and at 8 years post randomization. So this is a survey which surveys can be somewhat accurate. Like there's a lot of risk of bias with survey-based studies because people can lie or people cannot remember things. Then the nice thing is they are doing this over 8 years, so you are seeing trends, which is helpful to kind of tease out, if people didn't remember things properly, you have that previous survey. But just note that this is largely subjective data, but they also did track some other disease patterns as well, which we will get into. So, so here's their methods, getting into more detail. So they recruited postmenopausal women, and they it sounds like they had a couple different kind of clinical trials. They had hormone therapy, they had some with diabetes, calcium and vitamin D supplementation. So they had multiple different things going on with this as well. So the study, in addition, has a lot of kind of sifting through of which subgroups did what particular trial program. But the primary nutrition goal was to reduce total dietary fat intake 20% of energy. Individualized fat gram goals were set according to the person's height so as to reduce energy from the total fat to 20% if the goals were achieved. So they're also using height as the measure to individualize their fat allowance, if you will. And yeah, the intervention. Oh yeah, no, the DM is a diet modification. Sorry. Diet modification intervention was characterized to the low-fat dietary pattern, included recommendations to increase consumption of vegetables and fruit to at least 5 servings per day and increasing grain averages, like we mentioned. Not specifically mentioning fiber. So this is purely based on fat calories, is what they're studying, and servings of fruit and vegetables. All quality of life related variables were self-reported via questionnaires completed by the women prior to their first initial screening and selected follow-up times. So global quality of life was assessed by a single item, and this is important. This is important. So there's some questions here that are purely subjective. Overall, how would you rate your quality of life? And so if somebody had this intervention done and, like, let's say there was a placebo effect here, they could still report an increase in their quality of life even if nothing changed. Because placebo. We don't know that wasn't placebo for that particular question because it's purely subjective. With an 11-point response scale. So it was on a scale of from 0 to 10, with as bad or worse than being dead up to best quality of life. And then they also assessed quality of life and functional status using the RAND 36 item health survey, which provided 8 subscales that includes general health populations, so general health, physical functioning, vitality, which is energy and fatigue, again, subjective, role limitations due to physical health. So like things that you would normally do at home or like job things, and how effective are you at those physically due to your physical health. Like if you are working if you're pushing carts at Walmart, how, like, do you have the energy and physical capability to perform those roles? Or like if you are a homemaker, can you cook your meals? Can you walk to the bathroom? Can you walk to the mailbox? Like a lot of those types of things that are within your day-to-day routine. General mental health or emotional well-being. So they asked a lot of these questions, which are again largely subjective. General health assessed by questions about perceived health relative to another person or to the expectation of one's health in the future. So, how healthy do you think you are, and how compared to how healthy will you be? So, completely subjective. Physical functioning is less subjective, but still based on someone's uh, how they report feeling with bending, kneeling, stooping, walking around a block, etc. Vitality questions, including feeling full of pep, worn out, or having a lot of energy. Again, completely subjective. Um, Amount of pain, that's pretty self-explanatory. Social functioning, so and the mental health. Right. So all of that is pretty subjective. And then they did some cognitive functioning assessments. They did assessments for sleep disturbances. And so the part that he's taking out of context here, let me find it. It's going to be in the discussion, I'm willing to bet. Here we go. Gotta find it. There's a lot of stuff in here. Is it under? It's not under conclusion. Sorry, I gotta find it. I should have maybe found this before the stream. There's a section, or at least there's a statement about fiber. He does mention it in his little thing too. Oh yeah, okay. Well, here's something. No, that's fat intake. Where's the fiber stuff? I'll find it. See if y'all have any question. Can you control? I might be able to. Let me see. Fiber. I can. Okay. I found part of it. 3. I can't find the specific section. I'm just gonna go back to the other thing because he says it. It was the so where he says consuming. Oh no, it's not that one. Where is it? I think it might be this. No, that's a different one. Oh yeah, no, he says it here. Increasing fiber in the diet had no beneficial effects on colon cancer, nor did it prevent heart disease or cancer or induce weight loss. That's the same. That is from the same study. So he lists it as to make it seem like it's another citation, but it's the same citation from up at the top. And yeah, the study says that there was no association between the fiber amount, like and the rates of colon cancer in those people, or heart disease or cancer or induced weight loss. That wasn't the claim, though. That wasn't the purpose of the study. So sure, it said that, but that's not the purpose of the study. And so this isn't a good study to back up that particular claim. Yeah, fiber can improve your body's blood sugar response, and this is something that we know. And they say, however, that's irrelevant when following a meat-based diet since the meat doesn't contain carbohydrates. Which that the implication of that is that you're not going to have blood sugar if you don't consume carbohydrates, which is absolute BS because you're still going to produce glucose via gluconeogenesis. There is some form of reliance on glucose because ketone. There's only a few organs that can fully function on ketones. Not every part of your body can function on ketones, right? Like the main one is the brain, and the heart can to some extent as well. But your liver produces glucose via gluconeogenesis, and it's going to do that using protein. So when you can't do that through glucose, you're going to do it with protein. And the reason this happens is because you cannot generate the process of the citric acid cycle is not completely reversible back to pyruvate from beta oxidation or like fat metabolism. If you metabolize fats, you can get ketones and you can get, I believe, you can get steps that would happen after acetyl-CoA. But you can't generate the molecules needed for gluconeogenesis from lipid metabolism. So what you're going to do, where people think that they're completely relying on fat for their energy sources, they're not. They're also relying on protein to make blood glucose. And so even if you are on something like carnivore, you still have blood glucose in your system. You still have to regulate that. You still have insulin. You still have glucagon. Those hormones are still operating. And so, yes, you need to still monitor that. And sure, you may have less blood sugar. And for some people, you can get better control with the ketogenic diet, but not for everybody. And it's still important that you're careful with this. So the statement that fiber's not like that blood sugar response is irrelevant because you're not taking in carbohydrates is a huge misunderstanding of what human metabolism is like. And here I'm going to show you all a diagram. So people think of metabolism as being something very simple and straightforward. It is so heavily nuanced. And I remember when I took biochem in undergrad, and then when I took biochem again in medical school, how complex these pathways are, and having to go through every pathway and say this one, if you shut down this pathway, where does everything go? How does the amount of NAD plus in your system impact that? It's a lot more difficult to tease that out than just saying these diets are good or these diets are bad. That is blatant oversimplification. And that's one of the big problems with carnivore. It's one of the big problems with any fad diet. It's a big problem with pseudoscience in general, is the gross oversimplification of highly nuanced topics. So I'm going to show you this diagram of human metabolism because this is what all of the pathways look like together. This is human metabolism right here. So if it's not going to let me zoom in on the picture. But right here, I believe is the citric acid cycle. We've got one of those is the urea cycle. We have looks like maybe the pentose phosphate pathway might be up there. I can't even see this. This is so small. But this is human metabolism. So to say that no, we're just completely converting, like we're completely relying on lipid metabolism, and so we don't have to worry about carbohydrates. That is such an oversimplification, and that simplification will hurt people who think that that's true. So when you underutilize one pathway, you have to look at what is that doing to the rest of this system. Like, let's put this into perspective a little bit. Like, let's talk about circuit boards, right? If you have a circuit set up and you just move wires around, sure, it may not do anything. It may not do anything to the system. It may be okay, but depending on what resistors you have in the way, what light bulbs you have there, what batteries you have in certain places, just moving the wires around may impact the whole circuit and may shut down the circuit. And I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm not an electrician, so that stuff is way over my head. But I wouldn't go into that and say I can just move this around and be okay, because that might not be true. I should be responsible and figure out, what am I risking? Am I going to overload something? And so that's what I want to challenge a lot of you. If you think you understand the nuances of this, if you think that, you can just do a Google and understand how all this works, I don't believe you. That is a lot of Dunning-Kruger. And yes, I am a DO. So I guess in a lot of cases that gives me an advantage for the people that do not trust MDs. So I am a trained DO. So pursuing further education in internal medicine and eventually nephrology, lots of kidney math. So yeah, so there's a lot of that. But again, and I keep repeating this ad nauseum. The goal is not to shit on particular diets for certain individual people. This is just kind of saying fads are often fads for a reason, and don't do something just because somebody else tells you to. Like, be skeptical about this stuff. I did want to touch on something else. I was going to go into some more Jordan Peterson stuff, because he's a hot mess. But I do want to do my due diligence here and debunk something that was going around on the internet very recently. And that is this article from JAMA. And JAMA is very credible. But one problem is this particular article was used as clickbait. And the title was suggesting that the carnivore diet caused yellowish nodules, which were cholesterol deposits within the skin. And that is something we cannot make the assumption of. So again, the same way that I said we cannot make a correlation equals causation argument for carnivore diet causing all of these positive things, we also cannot do that with the negative things, right? Like, we can't just say that the carnivore is the result of certain things happening. We have data out there showing that, high levels of saturated fats are often correlated with, like, incidence of heart disease. And there's a lot of study kind of being done on these newer diets, et cetera. And kind of, what does the ideal macro split look like for this? Like, what are the actual culprits involved? And a lot of this is the dosage makes the poison. So saturated fats in general are not, like, they're not completely bad. Like, there are advantages to saturated fats. There are advantages to eating meat. There are do we have to be phobic towards trans fats? I think that one, I can't say for sure, like, what the new data is on that. Um, I think there's still a reason to not intake a whole lot of them, like to have it in moderation. Like, don't go out there and eat like a whole bunch of Twinkies. But kind of with that too, the question is the problem the fat, or is the problem the other things that you're eating that contain the fat? Like if you eat boxes of Twinkies and nothing else, of course you're going to feel like shit. You're not getting those nutrients that you need. So that's something that would be unfair to blame saturated or trans fats because of some other variable. So it's just important to narrow down what specifically is the cause of that thing. Yeah, and the fuzzy logic saying I've lost 30 kilos and completely reversed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease by balancing calories in, calories out, and macros. Yeah, and so it just things are going to work differently for different people. So just take everything with kind of a grain of salt, but also like for most people, more balance is going to be the right answer. But again, not for everybody. So this article is talking about. I'll just read it and then we can get into the comment section because there's actually some really good comments. A man in his 40s presented with a 3-week history of asymptomatic yellowish nodules on his palms, soles, and elbows. He adopted a carnivore diet approximately 8 months before presentation. His dietary habits included a high intake of fats, consisting of 6 to 9 pounds of cheese, sticks of butter, and additional fat incorporated into his daily hamburgers. Which something I do want to point out here that this isn't even a strict carnivore. Like this, like a lot of carnivore people will say to not use butter. Like a lot of people say, no, use only beef tallow, and don't eat a whole lot of cheese. Like a lot of people are, I'm going to give some benefit of the doubt to carnivore people and say most people that are having more positive effects with that are limiting their dairy intake, limiting their butter intake, etc. But he reported weight loss, increased energy, and improved mental clarity. Physical exam revealed those multiple painless yellow nodules, and I can show you the picture for what we're talking about. Or I can't even actually see it from here because I don't have the access. I'm not gonna log in just to get those pictures. But the patient's cholesterol level exceeded 1,000 milligrams per deciliter, significantly higher than his baseline level of 210 to 300 milligrams per deciliter. A diagnosis of xanthoma was made, which is similar to, if you've heard the term xanthelasma, that's more of the deposits around the eyes that you can get with very high cholesterol levels. So this case presentation was used to imply that the dietary patterns were what led to the xanthoma and the very high lipid levels. And I'm not saying that there wasn't a contribution. There could have been. It could have been a contributing factor. However, this patient probably has familial issues with their cholesterol. And the big thing here, and these people go into a lot of depth with it, there are certain familial disorders with lipid metabolism that cause you to have deposits of cholesterol underneath your skin. And especially the presentation that they're saying with these xanthomas underneath, like in the palms and the soles, that is pathognomonic for, so here they say it right here. This is pathognomonic for where is it? Familial dysbeta lipoproteinemia, which is a deficiency in a very specific enzyme within the process of cholesterol metabolism and storage that prevents them from utilizing the cholesterol and storing it. So in this case, it's possible that the dietary factors may have had may have revealed this underlying diagnosis, he was probably going to develop this anyway. And the fact that he was consuming such high amounts of cholesterol when his body could not utilize them is probably what gave him this presentation. So I'm giving when I say like this isn't meant to be like just throwing one side of this under the bus. Like this is a JAMA article that I am agreeing with the comment section on. I'm agreeing that the way that this article was presented and the assumptions made that the carnivore diet caused this, I think that is also fallacious. That is also a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. And we should be careful not to make those assumptions as well. So this is similar to if somebody had if they had celiac disease, like the gluten isn't what caused them to have celiac disease. They already had the underlying condition, but the intake of gluten revealed the symptoms and revealed the fact that they have that condition. And so it kind of ends up being a little bit of a helpful diagnostic tool in a way. So hope that is helpful for you all. And with that, we are kind of running out of time in this episode. So I'm not going to get into some of the other stuff that I had planned. And I apologize if today's episode seemed like a lot of ranting. There was a lot of questions in the audience that I wanted to address. So, and you know what? We didn't get any super chats today, but I'm gonna do one of these immunity shots, you know, just for the haters here. I got someone inside chat telling me that I look unwell. And so maybe this immunity shot is going to make me feel better and reduce my inflammation. I don't know. It's got ginger and cayenne in it. So apparently maybe this will help. There you go. All right. So with that, I hope everybody enjoyed this today. I'm going to try to put the resources in the description so you can go back later and look at those. And I'm going to send you all over to. Oh yeah, this was pretty spicy, Theo. I'm going to send you all over to Holy Spirits, which is a comedy show telling Bible stories. Well, in this case, it's Quran stories. We're actually it's Richard Gilliver and Secular Rarity telling donkey stories from the Quran while under the influence of alcohol. It's kind of goofy. So super chat. Oh, there's a super chat. Thank you, Skeptoidius. And for that, you know what? Because the last one was a gift. Oh, here's a yellow super chat to go with the yellow shot. Awesome. Okay, we got two more. So I will drink these other two shots here for you. So, and Joe Neal, Dr. Penn, I'm becoming a big fan. Your show with Lux is excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely go watch the Transatlantic Collins show. Yeah, it's not for a few more minutes, 30 more minutes, but I am gonna send you all into that side chat, and y'all can hang out there for a little bit while we do this. But the Fuzzy Logic 10 pounds saying here's a yellow super chat to go with the yellow shot, and I will do this. Huzzah! Thank you for your super chat. I feel like my chakras are aligning with this. Oh, okay. And you know what? We'll do this third one too, because we're getting some good super chats. So, and then, oh man, these are spicy. Bye, Quantos Nachos. Yeah, no, wait, hold on. We're gonna go into the other stream chat. Yikes. All right. Once again, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you all being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.